So today I'm going to tell the story of how I met Martin Shkreli and Milo Yiannopoulos on the same night, both of them on the same night. And I'm going to tell this story because I think it illustrates how unique and interesting and almost fun a job being a journalist can be relative to so many other careers and professions. Like, if you just want to see interesting things in the world, or in your country, or in your city, then be a journalist. So this dates all the way back to a few years ago. I was a younger BostWiki and working at a previous news organization as a video journalist. And we had been sent an invitation by a Lucian Wintrich, I believe his name was, who was White House press correspondent for the Gateway Pundit, which is kind of a conservative alt-right digital media company in D.C. Anyway, back in 2016, when Donald Trump was running for election, Lucian had put together what he was calling an alt-right art show. And this alt-right art show was going to take place in New York City. And so we sent out an email asking if anybody would like to attend from our news organization. And I volunteered. It sounded interesting. Now, I'll openly admit, I am not a alt-right or even a very conservative person at all. I would consider myself liberal. I believe I'm registered as an independent. So, take that as you want. Anyway, Lucian sent out the email. I said, yeah, sure, I'll go tonight to the alt-right art show. I take my colleague with me, who was a black woman, and we grab some cameras, we get ready to go, pack up for the rest of the afternoon, and at around 4:30 in the afternoon, there was some emailing back and forth, as it was originally supposed to take place in Brooklyn, actually, now that I recall. And then somebody had called in a bomb threat or a death threat or something of the sort. So they had canceled it at that gallery location in Brooklyn, and they were quickly trying to find another location. Lucian was. He eventually found a gallery in Chelsea that was willing to host their alt-right art show at the last minute. And so at around 5:30 or 6, we got the word, hey, the alt-right art show is about to take place at 7:30. Meet us down over in Chelsea. So myself and my colleague headed out to go to the alt-right art show. Now, I should give a little bit of background to the alt-right art show. It was funded in part on, I believe, an Indiegogo campaign where people paid somewhere between hundreds of dollars to a couple $1,000s to attend this, and it promised to show great American art, or I forget the exact catchphrase. But I remember there was a sign that, had the Make America Great Again. It had a Make Art Great Again in the classic Donald Trump political logo. Anyway, we arrive and we greet Lucian, and we walk in and we start talking to a few people. And I remember in particular there was a nice elderly gay couple, in fact, that were there, and I think somewhat timidly there. And I informed them, oh yeah, we're actually journalists, and they're like, Oh, interesting. Well, and they didn't want to talk too much, but I found that quite interesting, actually. That a gay couple in their 40s was actually attending this alt-right art show in support of Donald Trump, and Milo Yiannopoulos, who is the kind of headliner of this event. Now, as I was milling about with my colleague, who was, I believe, the only black woman there, the gay couple I mentioned earlier, I believe one of the men was actually black. Anyway, as we were milling about, Martin Shkreli happened to be there. And in fact, he had offered his own art installation for the show, which was, I believe, you may be able to look this up, it was a acetaminophen pill in a kind of concave container. One acetaminophen pill, and it was listing for $20,000. And I believe the placard said that, the proceeds will go to raising research on some sort of HIV or, some sort of medical research. Acetaminophen is just a fancy name for Tylenol. So Martin Shkreli had donated a Tylenol as a kind of art gimmick and was charging $20,000 for it, saying that the proceeds will go to biomedical research. But anyway, he was milling about in kind of a brown sports jacket and his kind of foppish hair. So I spoke to Martin for a little bit, and he was quite nice, I must admit, although he's currently serving 7 years in prison at the moment. My interactions with him were nothing but congenial. He was quite friendly. He was not the kind of aloof prick you see, or saw, I should say, on his YouTube live streams. He was very present and smiley and relatively warm. I must, just be honest. I remember asking him, do you like living alone in your apartment? And I remember he didn't have a good answer. I could tell, he started to answer as if like, oh, I don't have to live alone if I didn't want to, kind of deal. And then he thought better of it, and just kind of trailed off. Maybe because he thought, well, wait a minute, maybe I have tried to have a girlfriend and it hasn't really lasted. I don't know. But that little part of the conversation stands out in my mind. Anyway, continued on, milling about the art show. They had a kind of DJ playing and a couple people bringing around hors d'oeuvres, like a little hot dog weenies and such. And they had a little mini bar that you could go get, honestly, I don't remember, probably a little champagne or some sort of, cheap jungle juice. And there is I believe, still a photo on my Instagram of me in my sports jacket there, wearing they had given everyone a Make America Great Again hat as he walked in. So I am in a sports jacket wearing a Make America Great Again hat, looking at this large painting, which was a portrait of George Washington, looking, very stately, wearing a red MAGA hat. And it's quite the image. Anyway, the night continued, and Milo Yiannopoulos eventually showed up. He gave a little speech talking about why him and Lucien had put on this alt-right art show, voiced his support for Donald Trump, and then proceeded to showcase his art installation. Now, Martin Shkreli's was, of course, the Tylenol pill for $20,000. Milo Yiannopoulos's was a bathtub tucked in kind of the back right corner of the gallery. So it was this white marble bathtub, and against the wall on the bathtub were all these pictures of individuals, probably about 15 or 20, pictures of individuals. And if you look closely, at the bottom of each of these pictures, is their name, their age, and the fact that they had all died, and they'd all been murdered, quote unquote, murdered by illegal immigrants. And that, I think that the tortured metaphor there was that, we're in the blood of, blood is in our hands because we're allowing immigrants to come across the border in Mexico undocumented. But anyway, Milo Yiannopoulos led myself and the crowd with us over to his bathtub and picture display. And then he proceeded to, I think, fill it up with kind of a blood red water, at which point I can't recall if he took off his shirt or not, but once the tub was nice and red and, goopy blood looking, I remember he dove into the tub, sunglasses and all, and splattered blood all over the place. And he was smearing blood on himself, smearing blood on the images, and going on about how the immigration across the Mexico-American border was, disastrous to Western civilization. Anyway, Milo Yiannopoulos, it was quite, what's the word? Quite not present. As much as Martin Shkreli was present, and I found in him a real human connection, regardless of how you may feel about him and, his political views or his views on his pharmacy company, or your views on Daraprim, just on a one-to-one, mano-a-mano connection, it didn't strike me as he was very much present, whereas Milo Yiannopoulos was very much not present, I would say, mentally. He had quite a few handlers following him around. He had a couple phones on him. I remember he was on the phone quite often. He was signing autographs and such. But we did stop and talk. I told him I was, a reporter for blah, 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 blah. I asked him a few questions, and he answered them very, nicely as well, very pleasantly and articulately. And then basically wrapped it all up. But I want you to keep this in mind, which was that at the time, only, a year prior, I had probably been living in Kansas in a small one-bedroom apartment, knowing nobody in the media or field, and had only known Martin Shkreli as the guy on CNBC talking about how he was this, multi-millionaire, wealthy pharma bro guy. And my only, knowledge of Milo Yiannopoulos was this kind of towering figure at YouTube on the time, talking about alt-right this and alt-right that. And he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he was talking with Ben Shapiro. I should say arguing with Ben Shapiro. And there suddenly I was, face-to-face, having actual conversations with these people. And I found it an altogether surreal experience that night. Now, I've gone on to have many, many experiences where this one starts to fade into the background, but I think it's a good example for anybody who's considering getting into journalism, or media, that you will have nights like that, and they certainly are interesting. So there you go. That's the story of how I met Milo Yiannopoulos and Martin Shkreli on the same night. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to watch another video, you can click around. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.